Alright, we needed to finish this example up. We were at the stage where we had added 5 to all three parts. So we have 9 is less than 3x is less than or equal to 15. Now we still want x alone in the center. So I'm going to have to divide by 3 in order to make that happen. Remember, we can do that as long as we do it to all three parts so that we maintain balance. So now, on the left, we have 9 divided by 3, which is 3, less than. In the center, we have an x, less than or equal to 15 divided by 3 would be 5. So we're going to graph this solution. This literally says all of the x's in the center, in the middle of 3 and 5, in between 3 and 5. So I'm going to graph that. That would be everything in between the 3 and the 5. Now we need to discuss the endpoints because we need to know how to show this. Because the 3 is just a less than sign on it, there's no equality, so that gets a parenthesis. And I'm kind of exaggerating how big I'm making them just for effect. As far as the 5 on the other endpoint, we have less than or equal to. Because of that equality, we have to use a bracket there. So you can have, they could both be brackets, they could both be parentheses, or we could have one of each. That you have to really look at each endpoint to decide that. Let's look at another one here. This one says 5 is less than 1 minus 6m is less than or equal to 12. So again, we want this very center, we want the variable alone. So I'm going to subtract 1 first to get rid of that. Now I can do that as long as I do it to all three parts. So now on the very left we have 5 minus 1, which is 4, less than negative 6m, less than or equal to 12 minus 1 is 11. Now we still do not have our variable alone, so we would have to divide by negative 6 to make that happen. So remember, we can do that as long as we do it to all three parts. Now here's where things get interesting. 4 over negative 6, that will not divide evenly, so all we can do is reduce it down. 4 over 6 reduces down to 2/3, and it is negative because a positive divided by a negative is negative. Now, what do we do with our symbol though? Remember, if we multiply or divide by a negative, we have to flip our symbol over. So that becomes a greater than. In the center, we have m, and then again, we're flipping that symbol over, greater than or equal to. And on the right, 11 divided by negative 6, well, that's not even, so we're just going to leave it as negative 11/6. Now, if you'll remember from something that I said earlier, when we look at compound inequalities, our signs are always less than or less than equal to. This is violating that rule that I told you. Well, it's okay, we can change it, but we have to keep the signs pointing at the same numbers. What I mean by that is, you see how this symbol is pointing at the negative 11/6? That's because this is the smaller portion. M is larger than that. Well, I could rewrite that as long as I keep everything pointing in the same, not in the same direction, but at the same item. This means the exact same thing, I've just switched it over. Now I can keep that symbol pointing to the M and away from the negative 2/3. This is much more proper, and now we can go ahead and we can graph that. Let's see, negative 11/6, that's just shy of being negative 2. So I'll put that in there, negative 11/6. And negative 2/3, well, that's just right about here somewhere. So we're talking about everything in between there. Now what about our endpoints? This one is included because of the equality, so it gets the bracket. This side is not included, so it gets a parenthesis.